Ms. Glasso Camatli, thank you. Good morning. Buenos días. My grandma would say, Le de Dios. Thank you very much for showing up. Thank you for inviting me here. I want to begin just by thanking Creator and the ancestors, all those that have come before. As I greet you this morning, I also want to thank your ancestors. What I learned early on is that we don't walk alone. That when I see you, I see all your ancestors that way. And and I learned that early on, as a young child, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I get embarrassed when I get introduced. As a kid, we were taught not to brag about yourself. I had a loud talking dad. My father was a loud, hey, Nico, what's the matter? Get over here. My friends would come, your dad mad? I said, no, dude, the way he talks all the time. My dad just talked like that, just loud talking. It wasn't, he wasn't potentially violent. It wasn't, it didn't have unresolved, feelings. That's just the way he talked, And my dad taught us, that sense of, acknowledgement that way, my dad also wore a hat, not a good hat like this. He had working hats, but I wear a hat today in honor of my daddy, Jorge Perez Tello, who is Tapilan, Coahuitecan, from Yanaguana, which is commonly known as San Antonio. And my dad, with that loud voice, would not leave the house without putting a hat on. He had nothing but working hats with stains and holes, and but he had a way of putting it on. He didn't plop a hat on. No, hombre. He had a way of putting that hat on, right? And he'd put one foot in front of the other, put the other foot back, and he'd go like this. Then he'd go, Veo, vámonos. And then when my dad put the hat on, it seemed like he grew, like he got bigger, I thought he was like 6'2". He's only like 5'5", but I thought he was huge that way, But one of my daddy's rules was don't mess with my hats, right? And I didn't understand what that meant, but we'll talk about that later, And so I honor my dad and the lineage of his 15 brothers and sisters, I wear this medicine bag in honor of my mom. Maria Jesus Olague Ramos. It's from Chihuahua. She's Tarahumara, Mexica, And my mom always had a medalla. It helped her. It helped us. Sometimes she would get frustrated because we thought we knew more than my mom. We were and wanted to do things, and she was only like 4'11", and because we spoke English and had knowledge and now knew the system, thought we knew more, and my mom would get frustrated, put her hands in her apron. She'd walk away, and I'd hear things jiggling, I said, oh, my mom's got some money in her apron, One day, one of my friends wanted to go get some ice cream. He says, hey, it's good ice cream. I haven't got no money. I said, oh, my mom's got some change in her apron. She wasn't home, so I went and put my hand in her apron, right, to get the money out. And it wasn't money. It was a cross. It was a medalla. And I realized what my mom was doing every time she got frustrated. She reached in her pocket. She says, God, please help me before I beat their ass. You know what I mean? So she was praying for prevention, So I have that medalla in here. I have that medalla because sometimes I need it. I get that mad too. Because of sometimes the way I see children treated. Sometimes I see them not seen. Sometimes it triggers me and reminds me of when I was a 5-year-old boy going to school. And even though, yes, I have all these credentials and, nationally known, I'm a nationally recognized author and speak all over the place, that little boy is still there. And you could say, well, go to therapy, Should I've gone to therapy, been to ceremony, I've done all of that, and I still cry for that little boy. And one day I was speaking at the psychological conference, thousands of people, and I told a story about that little boy and my dad, and I began crying. And I had to stop, excuse me, let me get some water, and I went to get some water, and I came back, and I finished presenting, and then after I was finished, a line of people came to talk to me, and this one gentleman, psychologist, came up and he says, I appreciate your presentation. He says, but I noticed you broke down telling that story. He says, let me recommend a certain type of therapy for you so that, maybe you don't break down and you don't cry and you can, when you're presenting, it doesn't interrupt you. And I looked at him and I said, thank you very much. I appreciate you being concerned for me. I said, but I don't want to stop crying. Because what my elders have told me, those are not my tears. Those are my mama's tears. Those are my daddy's tears, my grandpa's tears, my grandma's tears, great ancestors' tears. Never got a chance to cry for all the stuff went on with them. So when you see these tears, it may not be mine. This may be my daddy's tears right now. Could be my great-grandma. Could be Miss Mosley's tears, because I saw her too down the street there in Compton. Be disrespected. And every time as a little boy I saw the disrespect, something shook in me that knew it wasn't right. Now, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't say nothing sometimes. I didn't know how to deal with it. But I knew it wasn't right. You know how when you know something just isn't right? See, and that isn't right doesn't just happen when you get older and become an educator and go to a presentation. That isn't right, is really given to you through when your mama holds you. Heard that drum? That's the heartbeat of your mama. We came into this world from the feminine, from our mamas, from that lineage. Our mama lent us her drum, gave us her drum. We have the heartbeat of our mamas, of our grandmas, our grandpas, our blood, the breath. That's why the breath is so important. My brother says, I can't breathe. It's not just I can't breathe. And we know that so much now with the pandemic, the significance of, So this concept of hueve tlatoli, right? Huehuet, if you see those danzantes, the Aztec dancers, that drum is called the huehuet, right? Heartbeat of the ancestors, the vibration that will reground you when you hear it. Something awakes in you. When I'm in a drum circle with my African-rooted brothers and they're playing those drums, something happens. It reminds you, even though you may not cognitively know, there's a vibration that says, let's settle in. The huehuet, the tlatoli is the teachings of the ancestors, the teachings of how your grandma would want you to be. How do you make your grandma, your grandpa proud? So my relatives, a daddy that came, Tapilan, but came from San Antonio, but called himself a Texan. We're Texans. Somos Tejanos. Because he couldn't say he was native. It wasn't even good to say you were Mexicano. So we're Texans. And what does it mean that you have to deny who you are? But he's a very proud Texan man and married my mom. And they got married, and some of us are born in San Antonio, and then we moved to LA because the work moved to LA. And so I was raised in Compton. So I'm straight out of Compton, right? Straight out of the hood, black, brown neighborhood, grew up in the neighborhood during the 50s and 60s, during the Chicano movement, civil rights movement. Part of my education was that experience. The hueve tlatoli, the teachings from those ancestors, those people in the neighborhoods that taught me how to be, how not to be, when to speak, when not to speak. Don't go there. Pay attention. Walk in a room, look behind you, know who you're with, know how to connect. We have signals, right? Walk in a room, look at somebody, do like that, right? They do it back, okay, we're cool. Where you from, right? I mean, just to get to school, right? And so when we talk about, the sense of la cultura cura, right? It means culture cures, but what it means is genetically, historically, it's in your system to know how to be with people, how to be loving, how to be caring, how to be respectful. We know that. I mean, many of you kids, I did stuff, but my mom said, you know better. Well, how do I know? You know better. I mean, when your mom tell you that, you know better. Why are you doing that? I'm only 3. How do I know? You know. Because my mom knew at 3 I knew. My mom knew that at birth I knew some stuff. A little granddaughter, 4 years of age, right? And as I'm doing this, I want to acknowledge my family, my compañera Susana, who, let's not get it twisted. Even though I'm speaking up here, she carries the medicine. Let's be real clear on that. Before I left, she blessed me up. Whenever I speak, I ask her, you think I should go? Yeah, you need to go. And she would come with me when she can, but she's got her own work too. But she blessed me up. And so I want to acknowledge Susana, who is the heart center, that huehuet of our family, right? 5 children, 6 grandchildren, right? But one of those grandchildren, Naya, right? She was 4, and my compañera is a danzante. She's been dancing for 40 years. She danced with one of the original maestros, Florencio Yescas, that came, and she danced with him, and danced for 40 years ongoing, and so she has some back issues, right? And so one day she was saying her back was hurting, and my little granddaughter was there. She says, Nani Susie, call her Nani, you want me to rub your back? And she says, yeah, man, you can rub my back. And so she laid down, and my granddaughter got on top of her and began rubbing, up here on top of her back. And her back was hurting on the bottom. And I said, Naya, mija, it's her lower back that's hurting. And that little girl, she looked at me like this. And she kept rubbing. And it's like, Tata, I know what I'm doing. And Susana said to me, when she put her hands like that, she could feel the heat. And she felt the vibration all the way down her spine. She says, and then she rubbed like this and put her hands all the way down her spine. And it unlocked something at the bottom of her spine. But the tension was here. The little girl knew. My granddaughter already knows. But then they go to school. Right? And, PowerPoints, híjole, Huh? Yeah, see. I'm pointing. Anyway, go ahead, go to the next slide, yeah. And I don't like PowerPoints. My grandma had a PowerPoint, though. She'd point like that, you better pay attention. But we always, begin asking for permiso. I always learned that you always ask for permiso. You never go in somebody's house. I'm a psychologist too. I don't care if I was referred by court, whatever. You never go in somebody's house without asking permission. You never go in somebody's heart. You never, it's a permission that when children come to you, I'm working with these hard-nosed, tattoo, bald head dudes that referred by probation, right? They have to be there according to probation. But then this youngster's saying something. I said, mijo, will you allow me to share something with you? I asked him permission. I'm getting ready to open him up. Mijo, is it okay? You ask for permission. And as I'm standing in this room, I want to acknowledge the elders in this room, that have been doing this for a long, long time. Asking for permission to be able to share these teachings that are not my teachings. They're just a continuation of what many of the elders here have been sharing and fighting for and sacrificing for that allows me to be here. We always ask for permission that way, And so, within that, we recognize the permission of the people of this land, but the people in the barrios, the OGs, the big mamas, the veteranos, the people that hold that medicine that way, the grandmas, the people that do the sana colita rana, those healers that way, that all of those that exist, that are there, right? With the next slide. And we recognize that this sense of cultura que cura, right? That we all in our ancestral ways, and this is a different than Western society. Western society says, we got to teach you. We got to teach you how to educate your kids. We got to teach you about health. We got to teach you about mental health. No, we know. Your body knows when it's not right. And that whole perception, ¿verdad? Is really important. if you come from a philosophy that we have to teach you that you don't know, then it's a whole different way than recognizing you do know. And my job is to water that, to tap into that, to reinforce that, right? So I was blessed, living in a household, my dad came from 15, my mom from a smaller family, 14, It's not like we don't believe in family planning, we just plan big, right? It's part of the revolution. We're taking over because we had so many kids, right? Check out the demographics. You got to pay attention to us now. Think about it. There's a lot of us, right? And in my house, there's a lot of us. Noisy house. Always a baby crying. All the time. So I would trip when the teacher says, go home and find a quiet place to study. I'm like, where? If you're really motivated to learn, you'll find your own little niche. Like, where? In my house, there was no quiet place. There was no my own space. This whole sense of cultura filled all of that, right? Next slide, please. But my parents wanted me to be successful, like all children, right? But what does that mean? What does successful mean? What does that mean? If we had time, we would explore. What did it mean when your parents says successful? My parents didn't say be successful. My mom said when I went to school, pórtese bien. Right? What does the pórtese bien mean? What does that mean? Behave, be good, what else? Huh? What does it mean?
Don't get in trouble.
Don't get in trouble. Don't make us look bad. Pay attention to the teacher. Listen. Right? All of those things. Right? Successful meaning with the assumption that as long as you carry yourself in a good way, then people at the school are going to love you and protect you and nurture you and take care of you and guide you in the right direction. That's the assumption. Pórtese bien, mijo. They'll take care of you. Wow. Right? But my grandma knew something deeper. Right? And I was blessed to live with both my grandmas. Not at the same time. You don't put two grandmas together. No, hombre. Aunque how holy they are, no tiene sus modos, and and I'm your favorite, right, mijo? Yeah, my enchiladas are better. Yeah, grandma, And my mom's mom, who was only about 4'10", she's about 4'10", and we used to go to the children's department to buy her shoes, little shoes like that, right? And I thought she was crazy. I thought my grandma was crazy. No, de veras. She would do crazy stuff. She'd talk to plants. She'd walk in the garden, mira qué bonita rosa acá, mira qué yo le dije, qué bonita. My grandma's talking to plants, she's crazy. Mira, te voy a dar un poquito agua aquí, I'm going to give you some water, right? I'm going to give you some water here. Si me das el permiso. My grandma asked permission of the plants. I said, why is grandma asking permission of the plants? Because she understood the power of the plants. Your relationship with nature. We understand that during the pandemic. People that were closer, that ate organic foods, that had a relationship, that put their hands in the soil. The things that came from the earth, the things that were connected to the earth helped you balance, increased your metabolism, helped your immune system. My grandma didn't tell me all that, but I now know that, right? But she would talk to the plants and go to the romero. Te voy a dar un poquito aquí. I'm going to give a little bit. I'm going to give you water and take a little bit because I got to make some tea because my grandson is sick. And she'd give us this yucky tea. And even though we didn't like it, it made us feel better, right? I thought my grandma was crazy. She'd get up at 4:30 in the morning. Hombre, why do you get up at 4:30? Grandma, you don't got to go to school or work. Why you get up so early? Cállese, mijo, no entiendes nada. And I didn't understand. Why 4:30? Why she get up so early? Well, now I recognize the significance of 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of you are woken up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And if you don't know, you get upset. If you don't recognize that that's a very sacred time. That's a time when Nana Luna, y Tata Sol, Grandmother Moon, and Grandfather Sun come together. It's the quietest part of the day, where the energy is the strongest. Or it's the most quiet part of the day, and in our ancestral ways, we believe that's where we get teachings and messages. We hear things. And my grandma would wake up that early Takes a lot of sacrifice to get up 4 in the morning, right? Intentionally. But she would do that. And she'd go to the little place. It was in our house, crowded house. In the hallway, there was a little rinconcito, a little hole in the wall. And in the hole in the wall, she had her candles, Virgen Guadalupe, all her sacreds, and there was a pillow on the ground. And she would kneel there at 4:30 in the morning. And you could almost do an assessment of my family, because the more problems we had, the longer she stayed right there, right? And just grounding, giving thanks. Even though sometimes all we had was frijoles. We didn't have very much. To understand we were considered poor, she gave thanks. What an attitude, right? You give thanks. Thank you, grandfather, for waking us up. Thank you. Thank you for all the kids, even the traviesos, even the kids that give you problems, even the ones that want to take baths, even the ones that you give thanks to them too, right? I mean, imagine if teachers would do that. Every little kid that came in, right? And then after she finished, she'd come to the room where all of us were sleeping, all of us kids were sleeping in, and she'd give us a bendición, right? Like, I'm blessing this brother right here. Thank you for sitting in front with me, brother. Thank you. No, I mean that. Thank you. She would bless us all up like that. And sometimes it bothered me. It was like 6 o'clock where she's like, Grandma, why are you waking me, Sorka? I was having a good dream. Hey, Grandma, you messed up my dream. I said, why you got to bless me now? You blessed me before I went to sleep and it's still good for now? And then before I walk out the house, you're going to bless me again. Why I need what, I got the devil in me? Okay, Chihuahua. Why I need so many I didn't understand. Let's go to the next slide. I didn't understand that what my grandma was doing is what Erickson could never figure out in terms of child development. Because Erickson didn't talk about feeding the spirit, feeding the identity. Didn't recognize that the closeness and interconnectedness was really important. We call it incloquenawake, that interconnected sacredness is really the strongest resilient factor that you have. And we live in a society that does the opposite. It wants to make you an individual, make you independent. And when you're not in synchronicity, they want to isolate you and give you time out or push you over there or lock you up or drug you up or deport you or whatever. So the question is, do we really want to heal? Or are you just doing something else here? So my grandma would inoculate us. She would breathe into us this message that you're sacred, you're a blessing. Just the way you are. And she blessed the kids that were good in school, the ones that were good in school, the ones that took baths every night, the stinky ones, the stinky ones. Maybe you were one of the stinky ones, I don't know. The traviesos, the ones that acted right, the ones that didn't follow directions, she blessed us all up. Because my grandma knew something. My grandma knew that when I left that house, the world was not going to see me as a blessing. That I walked in that classroom, they're going to see this dark-skinned little boy. Sometimes with that long hair. Want to put you at the back or maybe even not want you to be there. And you can tell. Can't you tell when you walk in when somebody wants you or not? Can you tell when they really want you to show up or not? You can tell. I could tell. At 5 years of age when I walked in that classroom, hablando puro español. Excited, I'm a 5-year-old with new tennis shoes, My pants were not new, they were my brother's, so I was bagging a little bit, and my brother's shirt, so the shoulder spot was down to here. So I was bagging and sagging. I wasn't trying to, front up or, claim or anything. That's all we had. But I was proud because I had new tennis shoes, and my mom said, "Pórtase bien." My grandma gave me the bendición, and I went to school. Geraldo Tello, my name tag, Geraldo Tello, right? And I walk in the classroom there, and the teacher looks at my name tag and says, "Gerald Tello?" No, mi nombre es Geraldo Tello. No, I know that's your name in Spanish, but you're here. You have to learn English to do well in school, so Gerald Tello, right? No, pero mi nombre es Geraldo Tello. No, I know that's your name in Spanish, young man, but let's start teaching you English so you could do well in school and be able to be successful, right? And do well. And can you say Gerald Tello? And I'm thinking, my mom said, "Pórtese bien, don't cause problems, don't behave." But there was another voice in my head. And the other voice in my head was my daddy's voice. And as I was standing there and the teacher saying, "Say your name," and Gerald Tello, I'm hearing my daddy's voice. And I'm remembering, I was with my dad a couple of weeks before, and we had gone to my Tio's house, and he was in his truck, and we came back to get gas, and we stopped at the gas station. My dad had his work shirt on, Jorge Tello, and we're standing there, and we're there, and back then they used to pump gas for you, so they'd come out, and the guy came out and saw my dad's shirt and says, "Mr. Tello, you want regular or Ethel?" "I want a $5 regular, but my name is Tello." "Okay, Mr. Tello, we'll get you $5 regular right here. Thank you, Mr. Tello." "My name is Tello." I know in Spanish, but you're now here in the United States. Better say it in English and teach that boy English. He's going to do well. I'll get you $5, Mr. Tello. And he goes, and you could see my dad's eyebrows getting kind of furrowed. He's a little bit upset. The guy pumped the gas. "Okay, Mr. Tello, $5. And my dad said, "Pues, here's your $5, cabrón." If you don't know what cabrón means, it means my brother. That I like it. So, anyway. And he gave him the $5, and the guy took it. "Well, thank you, Mr. Tello. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time." "Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay." And my dad started his truck, and we got ready to drive out the driveway, and my dad stopped. "Mijo, tu nombre es Tello. And don't you ever forget your name is Tello. That's your name, that's your family, that's your culture, and don't you ever let anybody disrespect your name. You understand me? And don't you ever do anything to disrespect our name and our family. ¿Me entiendes? You understand me?" "Yes, Daddy." "Okay, let's go get ice cream, And so I'm standing in front of the teacher saying, "Say, Tello," and I'm thinking, my mom says but my dad says, "Don't let anybody," but my mom says, "Don't call no," but my dad's going to be mad at me if I do. My dad's going to be mad, but my mom says, but if I say it, my dad's going to be mad at me because I'm 5. And I'm stuck in between two worlds. Can you say Gerald Tello? Gerald Tello. No, say it big voice. Come on, use your big voice. Come on, so all the kids can hear you. Gerald Tello. No, say it big. Come on, let's say it out loud. My dad's going to be mad at me. Okay, Gerald Tello. Okay, good. That's a good start. Now go sit at the back of the room. And my spirit cracked. And I was afraid. I didn't want to speak no more. What goes on, let's go there. Let's go there. There's a sense of education, right? That this Western society says you must get through in order to be successful. But what we forget is there's la educación. That what my mom and my dad was saying successful is you must be bien educado. What does bien educado mean? What does that mean? Well behaved. What else? Well, oh God, well. You have manners. Know how to be with people. But it also means you have to be able to be versatile. Right? That when I'm with my grandma, I got to be gentle. If we go to church, I got to be quiet. But if I'm out in the yard and I'm playing soccer, you better entres con ganas, mijo. And then go over here and be respectful. You got to know when to speak English, when to speak Spanish. You got to how to code switch. You got to know how to be different ways. And now when it's time for ceremony, you're not. Bless you. The clash, right? And what happened is this clash happens, and if nobody prepares you, nobody helps you with it. This is the reality because this is what society follows. People that are here, they say are smart. People that are here, well, they're not so smart. So my grandma's not so smart. My grandma's not educated. My grandma doesn't have wisdom. I mean, that's the message. And even my dad's not a good dad because they said good dads read to you and play with you and take you to the park. And as the teacher's telling me that, I'm thinking, well, my dad, all he does is work. When I get up, my dad's at work, and he comes in the middle of the day and changes and goes to his other job. And sometimes when I go to sleep, my dad's still working. If they read in the books and everything about dads that play with you and take you to the park and do these things, I don't have a good dad. What does that do to my perception of my father? To my perception of my mother? Next slide. So this sense of education is really this sense, and let me just acknowledge Andres Segura, one of our teachers that shared this. I was in ceremony and he was sharing this along with Maestro Jose Montoya, who shared this teaching, right? About the Western educational system that says in order to be successful, you got to go to the institution. You have to get validated by an institution, a Western-based institution. And you get there, you get the facts and constructs in order to make you educated. And this is the same for health, for mental health as well, right? All these systems, right? And with that, your goal is to get a credential or degree or something like that, right? And that gives you some type of hierarchical status. Because if you have a high school diploma or a college degree, you have more hierarchical status. That gives you power. You want power, and power will give you the ability to be, to be able to buy things and provide and do all of that, and that's success. And an interesting thing, when I present to the homies, they say, man, if it's about material money and shit, I can run some drugs from here to I don't go to school. I can make more money if that's what it's about. If it's about the material things, if it's about buying stuff, it's about making money, I ain't got to go through this. And so we find then students figuring all kinds of ways from AI to everything else to get through this so they can show a degree or credential or... I remember when I first went to college, it was a trip, man. Went to a private college, Claremont College. I got a scholarship there. And dudes were paying dudes to write papers. I was like, what? How can you do that, man? Oh, shut up, fool. I didn't have money to write papers. They're paying people to write papers. I'm like, whoa. Getting A's, wow. And I'm there, this boy from Compton, just trying to get through and struggling. And so next slide. But then we have la educación, right? And you can't see up at top, but let me explain to the four quadrants at top. One is education. All parents want their kids to be well educated, but they also want them to learn their cultural teachings. They also recognize that we have life experience. Now, I get youngsters, I get people that have life experience, that have to have life experience to get home, to deal with day to day, to function in the neighborhood. There's some life experience that gives you resiliency, that helps you. But also your relationships. Right? And that gives you life knowledge. It's not education, it gives you life knowledge. So that we have grandparents, we have people that are so-called illiterate that have life knowledge. They know stuff. Right? My grandma knew stuff. Miss Mosley knew stuff. One day, my dad lost his job. And my parents were arguing and fighting all night, kept us up all night. I went and I would go to Miss Mosley's house to pick up Tyrone, my best friend, Tyrone Mosley. Miss Mosley would be sitting on the porch. And every day I'd go up and she'd be sitting on the porch, right? And every day she'd greet me, good morning, little Jerry. How you doing, baby? Fine, Miss Mosley. Come here, baby, come here. What's the matter? Nothing. What's the matter, baby? What happened? Nothing. Oh, I know something happened. It's okay. I got you. I know sometimes things happen in families, baby. I know that. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be praying for you. It's going to be okay. I got you. Little Jerry, you know you want a mine, right? You know you want a mine. Anytime you need to, you come to Miss Mosley's house. I always got something cooking in there. In fact, I made some chocolate cookies. You made some shit. That's all I need is chocolate. But see, that sense of life knowledge, of knowing what a child needs. And if you have that life knowledge, that gives you an honored role, right? It gives you a lugar, right? That honored role then gives you strength. It's different than power, We're all about power, power, advocating for power, but strength is an internal thing that can't be taken away. And it gives you the ability to balance and to provide physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And that's success. It's called destino, right? So when we talk then about educación, and let's go to the next slide. It's not about one is good and one is bad. It's about how do we balance this? How do we integrate? And which do we need to feed more of today? I would say our world needs a lot of this side today, right? Especially after the pandemic, especially after a whole bunch of things. Next slide. But what I want you to understand is that every culture, and this is one direction, but I could take the African direction here, I could take the Asian direction here. In every direction there are these teachings. What people don't understand is we have thousands and thousands of years in codices, we have writings about that, about these teachings. Before Western society and educational systems and mental health systems and health systems, there were families and communities that knew how to raise kids, that still know how to raise kids. This Hueve Tlatoli, right, teachings of the elders, teaching the ancestors, builds la educación, or the development of your character, your spirit, your tonali. That then comes into two concepts, ixtli and yolotl, cara y corazón, or face and heart, right? And then that brings us down to values, right? Out of the cara comes the value of dignidad, dignity, y respeto. And out of the yolotl, or the corazón, is that value of love, or amor, cariño, or confianza, trust, right? So we can operationalize this too. Now, historically, we've had evidence-based practices. We've had research. My grandma did research on us, right? To know what was going on and how we were doing, right? Let's go next slide. And out of this comes then these 4 major teachings of how do you keep yourself healthy? Well, by the way, this is a week-long institute, okay? So that we do with exercise and how do you integrate this into a classroom, how do you integrate this into school climate, how do you integrate this in instruction. But I want you to go to the first one there. You're wanted, you're welcome, you're a blessing. That's what my grandma was doing, you're a blessing. So one of the things that I have the privilege of doing and that I did early on is began writing children's books. And I began writing children's books because, first of all, I had my own kids and there was no stories that related to our culture that I could tell my kids. So I began making up stories. And when I work with parents, I would tell the parents these stories. It says, ¿No tienes ese cuento escribido para que, so I can tell my kids? And so then I just began writing books and wrote books. And one of the books that is really an ancient story is the book about how the coyote got his name. Right, and I have that out there if you're interested in purchasing. But anyway, so I'm working in classrooms many times. I tell this story, and the story is the coyote. It's a new day. Grandfather son comes out, touches the big brown furry animal to come out and announce to all the animal kingdom to come because something important is going to happen, and they all come. And he announces, tomorrow morning you get to pick who you are. You don't have to be who you are anymore. If you're a little squirrel, you have to be a squirrel. If you'd rather be an eagle, you can be an eagle. If you don't like being a jackrabbit, you can be a lion. You can be anything you want. And he says, but when the sun comes out the next day, come and show up and pick your name. And if the name's not taken, you can be that. And the coyote was so excited, and because the coyote didn't like being a coyote because it's got skinny nose and skinny tail and ugly coat and all of that. And he wanted to be the eagle, wanted to be the lion, wanted to be the bear and all of that. So he goes back to where he sleeps, and he falls asleep and he oversleeps, right? Like some of you do. Anyway, he oversleeps and he gets there late and he wants to pick his name. And I'm asking the kids, so if you could be anything you want, what would you be? If you didn't have to be what you. And a couple of kids, well, I would be a lion, I would be an eagle. This little girl, Oaxaqueña girl, dark skin. He says, Mister, I would be white. What, ma'am? I would be white. I don't like being dark. Because nobody treats me good. I don't see me on TV. I don't like dark. Can I be white? And my heart breaks. And I feel the pain, and I remember. That sense of not feeling wanted, not feeling enough. And even, my brother over here, or somebody mentioned the imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. All of those things, And I remember, all those times. And this little girl doesn't want to be who she is. Remember my sister straightening her hair, her and her African-American friend ironing their hair so they could have good hair. They call it good hair. As if curly and kinky hair is bad hair. And so that sense of being wanted and welcomed just the way you are comes from a sense of a society that already has judgment. And if we do nothing with that, what happens? Next slide. What happens is this, like I said, there's a whole week, okay? If not, I'd go through this. But the first thing is confusion. Why am I feeling this? Have any of you walked in a place where you felt like not wanted? Yeah? What does it feel like? You ever walked in a place and just felt like, uh-oh, I don't know if I'm safe here. You felt that, man? Yeah? What does that feel like?
Awkward.
Yeah. How about you? What does it feel like?
I just want to leave.
Yeah, you don't want to be there. Yeah. And so, that sense of confusion, what's going on here? What? But if it happens again and again, it's like, oh, hell no. You get angry, right? How many times do we see kids get angry? Kids know I'm referred to a preschool. 4-year-old boy, been kicked out of 2 preschools already because he fights and he's angry and all that. I go into the classroom. I'm the psychologist, and I walk in and it says, Mr. Tello. I said, it's Tello. Well, thank you, Mr. Tello, for coming, and I'm trying to deal with this boy. So I got to let that go for right then, and you're the psychologist? Yeah. Well, there's that little angry little boy over there. I call him a little angry what's his name? Well, we have him in the corner. We have him on timeout. Well, how long is he on? He's on permanent timeout. What? What's for the safety of the other kids? How often do we isolate, negate? How's this kid going to heal? How's he going to? And it tells me about who's the family. Tells me about the mother. Dad's not. She says he doesn't have a dad. I said that's biologically impossible. How many times do we, because the dad's not present, think that doesn't have a role in a child's life? And I go over there and this boy is angry, and I could see the anger. I could feel the anger. Right? And I want to play with the kid, and he doesn't want to play with me, and I roll up a card in him, he kicks it back to me. And I roll it back, and he kicks it to me again. I roll it back, he kicks it to me, so I kick it back to him, and he kicks it back to me, and I kick it back to him, then he smiles. And I no, play. And I could feel him. I feel him. And all I could do is get down. I say, I'm sorry, mijo. I'm sorry. Who didn't show you that you were wanted, loved, and blessed, and sacred? Because that boy's feeling something. Because it's something. And it's not him. Right? The anxiety, right? And we see these kids, and not only little kids, we see older kids too, right? Sitting down, legs shaking. I remember, stuff happened, your legs just start shaking. Teachers say, hey, stop moving, you're moving the table. Okay, sorry, teacher. Stop moving. Didn't I tell you to stop moving? We're going to put you over there by yourself. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cause problems. I'm sorry. Teacher, can I go to the bathroom? I know I'm supposed to go to recess, but I can't go right now? Oh, I have to wait? Okay, okay, I'm sorry. I'll just hold it. I'm sorry. I'll just hold it. I'll just hold everything that's going on. I'll hold that. I saw that shooting last night. I hold it. The helicopters kept me. I hold it. We didn't have a lot to, okay, I'll just hold. I'm sorry, teacher. Don't send me the prison. I'm sorry. I'll just hold it. I'll hold it. I promise I'll just hold it. I'll just hold it. I'll just hold it. What happens when you can't hold it no more? Anxiety then turns to hate. I hate this stuff. I hate feeling this way. So then you got your partner that says, hey, fool, hit this. Hit this, dude. This will help you. No, man. Fool, hit this. All right, let me try it. Oh, damn. Ooh. And let me hit it again. Shit. Oh, man, I could breathe. Guess what he's going to do tomorrow? Because we want to educate and teach, but we didn't give him nothing to deal with this anxiety. Nothing to deal with that uncomfortable feeling. Nothing to deal with the hate. Oh, and what do we do with kids that are angry? Let's put them all in anger management. Put all the angry kids together. That's a smart thing to do, right? And teach them to manage it, right? Let's do restorative justice. I'm not dishing restorative justice, but you know what? If you're just restorative justicing because of an incident and the whole system is not just, then I don't know. Because young people are feeling about the unjust all around. And you try and give me the manual, okay, teach me meditation. I'm glad I'll meditate, but the situation is still on, and we're not talking about it. So if you deal with the anxiety and the anger and all that, but not dealing with the situation, or at least give an opportunity to discuss it, then it turns to self-hate. It must be me. And now we're hating on each other. Gangs, violence, domestic violence, brown people kill brown people, black people, all that stuff. Self-sabotaging behavior, smart people not even applying themselves, not even showing up. And if we don't do the intervention and the healing, then it turns to rage, and we see it all over now. Addictive, suicidal behavior since the pandemic, so many mental health issues. Next slide. And this is what happened. Susto. Right? Being scared. Next slide. Right? Trauma that impacts learning. Difficulty being present, impaired ability to think logically, difficulty regulating emotion, easily triggered, all of these things. Next slide. What do we do with students that are struggling? What do you do with them? For black and brown students, we over-medicate, over-diagnose, right? And don't consider that within how we teach. If you got this anxiety, you can't sit for 50 minutes. And we're doing lesson plans. You got to do things that are interactive. You got to give opportunities. There's other ways. Next slide. Society's response, what's wrong with this person, this family, this culture, right? Next slide. First level is we conform. Let's conform. Let's teach people to conform, right? Suspend, expel, diagnose, medicate, school policing, gang injustice, incarcerate. Most districts, what they do. We do training all across the country with districts, with schools, with communities, what most districts do. Next slide. Second level is reform. Mental health resources, restorative justice, anger, gang management, social emotional learning, all of those are important. But they're not dealing with the rooted things because they're not integrated daily. And I hear what you all are doing is some of the third level. So let's go to the third level. And this is about transformation, right? It really is relationship-based learning, we call educación. That culture is part of the whole essence of someone, and it's not a special program. It has to be what you do every day, all the time. Trauma-informed, healing-centered. See, now everybody's trauma-informed. I'm glad everybody's trauma-informed now. You know what? I've been trauma-informed my whole life, all right? But if you're trauma-informed and still have the biases, then what are you going to do with the trauma-informed information now? So it's not about being trauma, it's about being healing-centered. How do we help heal, right? And even what my brother and sister did this morning up here in opening up, just allowing a space, acknowledgement. My ancestors would say, as long as you know the directions, you can be okay. Face those directions, hear the vibration, leave time to settle, to anchor, to ground yourself, right? Culturally based kinship and rites of passage, we do rites of passage. We have Jova Noble, Girasol, Caricora. We have a whole number of curriculum that are about rites of, because young people need to know how to get across the bridge. My dad died when I was 13. And I learned you're not supposed to cry, right? And that wasn't just because of societal things on masculinity, patriarchy. That was to survive in a neighborhood. My friends came, I'm sorry your dad died. That's the way it is, dude. No, man, that's your jefito. He was sick anyway, man, it's better. Well, hey, man, let's go to my house. I got a 40. And that's what he saw people do, drink. But when we came back, I still saw my daddy's hats. And I said, who's going to teach me to wear that hat? Because the one supposed to teach me is gone. Who's teaching the young people how to cross that bridge? And the reality of the bridge, meaning cops pull you over, put your hands on the wheel, don't move. But I didn't do that. I don't care. Put your hands on the wheel, don't move. But that's not right. You're right. Keep your hands on the wheel. Reality-based and understanding the injustice, but still you got to survive. And then knowing how to advocate, right? Generational culture-based healing and development. Next slide. So we call transformational healing and learning, La Cultura Cura. Next slide. So let's look at this. This is a few years ago, but I want to show you just, this is Mario. This big Mario here. Let's see if we can.
Let's get up and we're going to honor the directions.
Mario's a perfect example. He had the inspiration, but he needed guidance. And he needed to find out who he really was.
I know who that young guy is.
I'm the director of the National Latino Fatherhood and Family Institute. We deal with communities that don't feel safe. Society told me he's a gangster, he's a loser.
My dad was locked up. And with that kind of an example, home never really felt safe. For me, it felt safer to be with my brother. They ended up heading towards the lifestyle of drugs, heavily involved in gangs. When you're growing up and you're feeling like you have no value, you really then have no value not only towards yourself, but you don't value anything around.
That experience provided for many of us is when you see the potential and you see the path of growing, of guiding, of leading others, then you choose to invest in a certain way.
We're going to make these opposites. Yellow could be for your dad, red could be for your mentor. And I want you to think of what are 4 values that those people have touched. We're fighting for $20,000 grants. And in those $20,000 grants, we were able to service up to 80 kids in a year-long program.
And you have not only a program, but you've broken cycles with hundreds of young people. People don't heal by you locking them up. All these young men you saw in the SICRE, we need them to become the teachers and healers in the community. What has happened to us? Where we could easily justify throwing young people away.
So the throwing away happens in a lot of different ways, not just locking kids up, but it's also shutting them out, not making them feel that they can bring their whole self, their whole culture, right? The whole essence of who they are. Yeah. So this transformational learning, it really is about engendering students to have a love for learning. Now you can Google anything. So it's not about getting information. It's about love learning and love the path and knowing each of you has a sacred purpose. You have a sacred purpose. Even you, the travieso, you have a sacred purpose. My brother, who was the oldest, who translated, right? He had to translate for my parents, heard a lot of discriminatory, racist things against my parents, didn't translate that. Where did those things go? In him. And because of that, it wounded him. He also was the protector in our family. Even when my dad was yelling at my mom, wanted to hit my mom, he stood in the middle. He got everything. My brother was the wound carrier in our family. He got tired. It was too much, the wounds. So he went in the streets where the other wound carrier got locked up. My brother, a year older, is a lawyer. My brother's sacred purpose was to carry the wounds, to be the warrior. And if it wasn't for him, I would not be here. So when you see these youngsters that are carrying the wounds, whose wounds are they carrying? And our job is to help limpiarlos, cleanse and recognize, Miko, you can break cycles of violence. Just you. You. I know that happened with you and your dad and your family. You, Miko, you can do this. You recognize the power you have, the palabra you have. You know, you're a shot caller. You know, Miko, you. And that's all part of supporting students, that letting them know they have cultural wisdom. Si sabes, you know, fool. I mean, all of us, when we've done messed up stuff, we knew we shouldn't have done it. Now, I was driving to parties. I knew I shouldn't go to that party. When we're in parties, I said, I should get out of here. We know. But someone destroys that sacred voice in you and says, you got to listen to your mind. No, there's a sacred voice, right? We've got to provide spaces for people to process their pain, for growth and for healing, right? So they can move from a participant. A lot of our kids are just participants in school. They're not really students. They're just there. And what we want to move them is from student to be a practitioner of these ways. So then they can be a facilitator of these ways, and we're teaching young people how to help other young people heal, how to love their culture, how to protect each other that way. Next slide. So the concept of identity is really about you're wanted, you're a blessing, connection, belonging, all of those things that are very significant. Next slide. And transformation begins with us. We must do our own work first to begin our own process, to acknowledge our own biases, decolonize our ways, and return to our sacred space, you know. And we have to do this, all of us. You know, myself, even at this stage, I'm still learning. I'm still, recognizing these things. My grandchildren, my children, the people I work with are still teaching me as an elder. I grew up in a different time, with now, there's many people that have many rooted cultures. That the genders, our transgender, our LGBTQ relatives, how do we accept and love all of them? Create spaces for we all feel welcome just the way we are, right? The sense of organizations to advocate for system transformation, challenging inequity and white supremacy, and developing policies, practice, funding, training on an ongoing basis. And I think some of that you guys are doing here. Next slide. So I want to show you, we have a rites of passage for girls called Girasol. And really powerful. I want to acknowledge Maestra Deborah and Maestra Susie, who really guided their elders and powerful teachings. But I want to show you this video because I want you to see the people that are in the video are teachers, they're social workers, they're mental health workers, and they're coming to learn a curriculum, but I want you to hear what they share.
Alpha Union School District. My name is Marisol Contreras Rico. My name is Maria del Socorro Lopez. My name is Margarita Garcia. My name is Elizabeth Ayala. Hello, my name is Juliana Resendiz. My name is Leila Bratovich. I'm Susana Armejo. My name is Deborah Luis Camarillo, and I work with the National Co-Violence Network as the Women and Girls Director. We provide healing spaces for mujeres, for women, so that they can really come into a place to recognize who they are as a woman and female identifying. My experience in the Girasol training has been transformational.
Has been very healing for myself, like my inner child.
There is that sacredness there, and something, very personal to me. My mama passed away, and there's something about Maestra Susie that allowed me to connect with her in the healing. A place that's safe to be able to share some of those things that they might have inside. My biggest takeaway is working on validating myself. And so that's the transformational feeling that I'm taking away from you. So it allows you to dig deep.
The heart and soul opening for me. The soul program has been amazing.
Next thing you know, you're engaging with your emotions. Definitely a lot of healing. We have some
curriculums that we train women to work with young women.
The 4 values of just realizing your self-worth, your dignity, and love and trust and respect, and that you deserve that is so, so important.
It's an intergenerational work. And we can't do this work any other way. Because that's the way that traditionally we passed on information. We passed on traditions and knowledge and wisdom.
I think you're coming here to receive some curriculum to teach somebody else. But in that process, you're actually receiving all of the teachings yourself.
With this training, with Girasol, I'm so ready. Like, I am so excited. I am ready to implement this with my community.
You know, we see how someone does something. We hear how they do it. We experience how they do it. And that's how then it becomes innate with us. This work is so important.
This curriculum really brings those foundational steps to encourage that and to, uplift each other.
I never want another young girl to have to not have a safe place to come to, not have supportive women around her. Sometimes it's just to be held and felt, to be told you're wanted, you're special, you're sacred.
There is power and beauty in loving and giving and healing.
So what I want you to notice is these are all the facilitators. These are teachers. And they have gone through their own process of healing. We have to do it for our staff too. So it's not just to provide programs, but we have to do our own work, And I think my time up. let me just close up with this. I just want to, as I close up. There's one other little video. If you can slide to the next video. I just want to, with these teachings, and this is the En La Quech, and Tú eres mi otro yo, and our vision. It's a whole bunch, and maybe I can go over those later. These teachings, keep going. There's another video. I want to show you this video. So we go in this classroom. This is the coyote story again, right? The coyote story.
Coyote sing? No? You don't know how coyote sings? Oh, who did that? Can you do that again? Let's see. Yeah, see? That's a little coyote. Anybody know how to do a coyote? Oh, yeah. And that coyote began singing? Come on, everybody sing with me, coyote. Ready? And Grandmother Moon told him, whenever you hear the coyote sing like that, whenever you hear him singing like that, the message is that you are special and a blessing just the way you are. Can we say that? You're special and a blessing just the way you are.
Can you say that? Can you say that? You're a blessing? You are sacred, just the way you are? Now turn around and tell somebody else. Tell somebody else you're special, you're a blessing, just the way you are. So with that, I want to thank you all. I'll answer questions in a few minutes, but I want to give you thanks for spending the time. Gracias.